Hello, my friend. How are you doing today? It's been a week and we haven't chatted yet. And I'm so glad we have today to catch up. Welcome to the URC space where we are unboxing our lives one blank space at a time. It is Nash here, your favorite podcaster. And today we're going to be in the self-care space and we're going to be diving into why we need to be selfishly obsessed with keeping ourselves as a priority. Yep, you heard me correctly. And for those of you who are returning to the show, thank you for rejoining our conversation here. And before we dive into our self-care conversation, which seems to be a buzz today, I got 2 phone calls the night before this episode was supposed to go live and, asking for some previews. So I just thank you so much for the love for everyone who's engaged and really invested in the show. And you're really making me feel a lot of love. And those who are feeling more love, or who are making me feel more love than that, are those who have signed up to be supporters of this podcast. I cannot believe that people actually want to support the podcast. It's just very overwhelming, and really that just ministers to me on so many levels and just confirms so much that I'm in my rightful place. I'm where God needs me to be. And I just want to thank you by name. So Alex, my homie, all the way from the UK, you know the vibes, you know how it is, man. We met in Australia, still going strong. We survived it. We bros for life. Bianca, you know that I still will brush you, even if you're in Romania. But I want to thank you so much for your support of the show. And then I can't, I just really, there's no words when your own mom supports you, right? I mean, your mom is always going to support you, but my mom signed up to support the podcast. So I got to give my mom some love. And I thank you so much. I love all of y'all. And really, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We're looking at self-care, right? And this episode is just, there's going to be a hodgepodge of what we're going to be discussing. And my bro, John, and I, we were having a conversation this week. Well, not this week. I mean, at multiple points this year so far. But this week, we block out some time to just get on the phone and just shoot the breeze, like, hey, yo, bro, what's going on with you? What's going on with me? And John was like, yo, bro, this has been the year of the grind, and it just feels like it's just been nonstop. Go, 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 go. Despite all of the different, I think, dynamics that maybe, you might be having in your world and me and mine, it still just feels a very fast pace. And we're already halfway through the month of February. Like, oh my goodness, March is coming here. Spring is getting ready to come. And you can't tell by what's going on with the weather. And, my prayers and thoughts are with all of those who were affected with any power outages or ice, snow, just things that happen, not just in Texas, but in so many other parts of the country and around the world. Just know that you're in my prayers. But when you look at that, it's like, wow, like we're really getting ready to move along into another month. And it is. And, one thing that, I caught myself in having that conversation with John, and I was like, yo, bro, we need to make sure that we're checking in on each other in the self-care department. So I want to add that into whenever we kind of catch up, just be like, hey, yo, did you invest in self today? All right, cool. I invested in self. Let's keep it moving. And I hope that you, with those who are in your space, last week on the show, we were talking about having those light people around you. John's definitely one of those in my life, but I hope that you, since the last time we spoke, you were able to just get connected with, or maybe even reignite being next to a light person who can help you in making sure that you're investing in self and being a part of your self-care support team. But when we look at self-care, just at what it is, definition, right? Google, of course, that's where I looked it up. And it says that it's the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Can we just double click on that word active? Taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Would you say that we're in a period of stress right now? I mean, there's so much calamity and turmoil going on in the world. I would say that could evoke a period of stress, depending on the perspective, right? I mean, some may say, no, I don't really engage in it. I watched the news for the first time this week. That was when I found out everything that was going on in Texas, because I've really just kind of unplugged myself from just what's going on in the world. Not to be a hermit, but just, there's just so much going on. And I'm just like, okay, let me come up for air. Let me just schedule some time to watch the news and then kind of come back out of it. And, the news can just evoke fear and so many unwanted emotions and things. I'm not trying to have myself associated with a lot of those. But I was like, wow, like I'm watching the news and there is just a lot of stress going on in the world, as it relates to this pandemic, the weather patterns, political topics, race topics, faith topics. I mean, the list can go on and on, right? And even just in that, you can get burned out off of it. But if we take ourselves out of that aspect of it and seeing kind of things unfold before our eyes, and we come back into this period of where we're living our lives in person, not in the future, not in the past, we are presently living our lives in person. We got to understand something. Burnout is extremely real, and I know it. And I know it very well because I used to work in a place where I lived, and maybe you did too. And what I say, you did too. Many of us are doing it now because everyone's working from home, or a good deal of people are working from home. And, it was so, I don't want to say funny to me, but I just found it a little interesting when people were talking about, oh my goodness, I got to work from home and this, that, whatever. And, I can't go to church and, oh my goodness, like my faith is this. And I'm like, when I heard people complaining about that, and then I heard people complaining about, oh my goodness, and like, I got to work from home and I don't know how to do this. And they're just like, and I'm like, I've been working from home for years too. I mean, I, lived on deck one. I'm only thinking of one particular ship, but I lived on deck one. My office was on deck two. Where I ate was on deck two. And yeah, and then I had another office, quote unquote office, on deck 8. And that was what I did. And I was used to living where I worked and really kind of not getting that break. But in doing that, we can find ourselves really becoming engulfed and just ensnared with being more devoted to our jobs and our respective vocations more than we need to be. And we've got to have barriers in place when it comes to that. Insert one of my favorite people on the planet alive, all the way from Serbia, my amazing friend, Yasmina. Yasmina and I met when we were working for a particular company, and she walked into the work environment. We shared an office together, and she's like, whoa, like you're doing a lot, Nash. Like you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, And she's like, so when's the time for yourself? And I, in a professional environment, I'm really like, I'm very guarded. I don't want to go too deep about my, like, hey, when you're trying to start figuring out stuff about me, you go and ask some other people over there who want gossip at the lunch table. Don't really come to me with too much personal stuff. And I wasn't always like that, but in my recent professional experience, I was very, very strict on, hey, this is the boundary, don't cross it. And I don't know, I guess I kind of was like, I knew that I was going to be leaving the company, and it wasn't public knowledge at that time to those with whom I was working, but I knew I was going to be leaving the company. I knew I had nothing to lose. I was like, oh, I'm never going to see this girl again, probably. I could tell her, I was like, well, I don't really have much time for myself. And she's like, well, what do you do? Like, what makes you happy? And I was like, well, going to the Kmart and going and getting some pizza and a box of Ho-Hos and Twinkies and coming back to my cabin and eating it and watching a movie, which of course is not healthy in any regard. But I thought that was self-care. And it is self-care to an extent, but self-care is, if we go back to our definition, actively, making sure that my well-being and happiness is being protected. And, in the health department, my well-being probably wasn't as protected with Twinkies and Ho-Hos, but, what can you say? And Yasmina and I had a conversation, and she was just really, really real with me. And she said, Nash, I think you need to find a way that you can be intentional about, one, getting off of this ship, because I was not getting off the ship much, and two, doing something that is going to only replenish you and not take away from you. And she just was, I know she was kind of speaking to me like she was like, like my big sister, like, hey, like I don't want to see you, and she's a little older than me, and she's lived a little bit more. And I always really look up to people who are, even if they're older than me by like a year or 2 years, even a few months, there's the wisdom that many can just give you. It's just so paramount. And including having like people in our life, I think we also got to keep people who are just a wealth of wisdom, because they can really be some good direction. And she's just kind of just speaking very sternly with me, but also, I can tell that it was from a place of, I've lived through some things and I've experienced some things, and I don't think you should have to go through that. You're young, you're vibrant, you're healthy, you're strong, and you should be able to keep going forward. And so I want you to promise that you're going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to take care of yourself and put yourself first. And so that started this thing that we kind of had, and we called it simply "We Promise." And we would, I would go, I don't know what is I'm trying to think what an example, Yasmina, that I sent you of when I would do. Oh, I remember when I was in South Africa. So I remember I took like a month-long vacation for my birthday one year in South Africa, and I went paragliding, and I sent her, I jumped off of Lion's Head Mountain, which is right below Table Mountain, one of the natural 8 wonders of the world. And I sent her the video of me doing the jump, and I just simply said the hashtag "We Promised." And that has just stuck with me since then, since I met her. And even today, I'll send a picture of putting some new essential oils in my diffuser, like, hey, we promised. And I think you got to get yourself in a position where you're okay with promising yourself to put yourself first again. And I think it's really easy, especially in this world, particularly if you're working in a working from home environment and people know that you're home. And even a double whammy to all my single friends who are listening right now. If you're single, people for some reason just equate single as not having a life. Oh, you don't have a family, you're not married, so of course you're available 24/7 and you can give yourself 100% to this. Yeah, that's probably something to be considered, but if I want to maintain a healthy balance and longevity, that's not something that I'm going to entertain. And I fell victim to that in my professional career, especially being single and being very, how do I say it? My work was very appreciated. And so if you're single and you work at a certain level and you have a certain reputation, there is going to be a demand placed on you, right? Just by default. In those positions, we need to not cower to the fact that because we're not married and because we don't have children, that we can't still say, I need to put myself first. And that conversation doesn't need to be had with your boss, right? I mean, it can just go with something like, I don't believe this is something I can entertain at this time. Or unfortunately, I have a standing meeting or a standing appointment, on these dates at these times, and you hold to that, like don't feel like, oh, well, because I'm single and I can work from home and I got all this time, I'm going to climb the ladder quicker. I'm going to this. Listen, that job, they will replace you the minute you keel over. All right. So invest in yourself and don't let them run you. You run how you want to operate in whatever, but not just in your position, not just in your job, right? But in every aspect of your life, you can run that. You don't have to let them dictate that. And I think when we look at this whole siloed isolation that we've kind of been placed into, as we've talked about here before, I look at it as this was an opportunity for many of us to then become more centered in investing in ourselves. And I remembered at the end of last year, there was this tweet that went out. Don't know the name. I would give a shout out, but you don't give me no love. You ain't get no plug. I don't know her name, but Mariah's looking at me like, oh, are you trying to use my line? You guys know that thing that Mariah and Jennifer Lopez has? Everyone always asks Mariah, what do you think about Jennifer Lopez? And she's always like, I don't know her. Mariah, I'm not okay. All right, I'm gonna get off you, Mariah. But I'm just saying, I do think it's funny. But back to our conversation. So when I saw that tweet, and essentially this girl was saying, yo, this year, 2020, by the way, I started a business. I did this. I did that. I've saved this much money. I paid off this much debt. I blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? That's great. That's fantastic. I applaud you for all of those intentional investments you made. But did you walk away with the greater awareness of taking care of yourself? Because if you don't have that, everything else just doesn't really matter. Like I don't see it really mattering or having much value. And I think it's great, if you did start a new business, or if you learn how to play the guitar, or maybe you just became a walking encyclopedia of the Netflix catalog or Disney Plus or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever subscription service you might have. But my question to you is, have you walked away with a greater awareness of taking care of yourself? It's great to have the business. It's great to have the podcast. It's great to have, whatever you are setting your heart to do and pursue. But are you really reminding yourself consistently to take care of yourself as you are in that process and in those processes? I said last week on the show, I schedule social media time, and people have been writing into the show like, what? Like, I never even thought about doing that. I schedule it. This is my window. When my window is up, the next 24 hours, Lord willing, if they come, that's when I'll just get back on and reply to everyone and all of that stuff. Because guys, I guess I can't say guys. That's not, I guess, gender friendly. So y'all, you, my friend, we got to really bring it back home to taking care of ourselves. And I'm going to read you a quote from Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is just a mental health expert who I absolutely love and adore, and how her faith and science are merged together. Check her out on Instagram at Dr. Caroline Leaf. She says, my mental health really changed when I stopped asking myself, oh, here comes the burp. Nope. Okay, just kidding. When I stopped asking myself why I'm so lazy and started asking, why does my body need so much rest right now? There are so many times when you probably felt like, why don't I want to do anything? Why do I just feel like a vegetable? Whatever. Stop asking yourself why you're feeling lazy, like she's saying, and start getting to the root as to what is your body really saying to you? Did you get yourself enough water? Did you get enough sleep the night before? Did you just have a stressful, conversation? Did you have a past with someone that wasn't favorable? Was there something externally influencing what you're feeling in your body? Can you address that? Can we go ahead and put that somewhere where we just collect our thoughts into it, process it, and not let it remain as mental anguish in us so that we can continue to move on in our lives? We need to really get to a place where we brew, bubble, and brim. Okay. And what I mean by brew, bubble, and brim is when we invest in ourselves, just like when you cut a coffee pot on or a teapot, it starts to brew, right? And then when it comes trickling down, then it starts to, kind of fills up. Maybe like bubble's not the good word here, but I'm trying to do the alliteration thing. As you know, we like alliteration here on the show. So we're going to call it a bubble. So it starts to bubble up. And then it starts to brim, it starts to kind of tip, especially if you accidentally hit the wrong setting, which I've done so many times. I have like a travel mug and I have like a coffee cup, and I put half pot on the thing, and then the thing just like spilled all over, and then Niagara Falls in the kitchen. And then it brims over. That's where we should be when we're looking at engaging with other people. We should not be in a position where people are asking us to do things or asking us to commit to things where we have outspent and outpoured and expensed ourselves over and over and over again, and we have yet to refill ourselves up. We cannot keep pouring from empty cups. It's just not possible. There's nothing left of you to give. And if there's nothing left of you to give, your impact, which should be great, and your influence, which should be great with every exchange you have, it's not going to be able to be that way because simply you are empty. You can't be empty. So I want you to go ahead and put that upsetting on your internal, on your body's coffee pot, teapot. And I want you to let it brim and really make intentional investments on self-care. Your job is not worth your life. When it's time to go, when it's time to, give yourself a cutoff date, or cutoff time, especially for those of us who work in virtual positions or, in virtual settings where maybe the hours are a little bit, this is the window, 9 to 5. Okay. The window's 9 to 5. Maybe I'll hang around for emails until 6:15. I'm up from the chair. That's it. I'm not going to be 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, going into the night and then, okay, well, it's time for bed. Then I'll just go to bed. And then you get up and you just do the same thing. Like, don't be chained to the rhythm. We got to really break out of that and remember to keep ourselves first in everything. So having personal boundaries at work is something I recommend. I know that it's not the easiest thing to do. And of course, coming from someone who lived where he worked, and let me tell you something, the personal and professional boundaries were always kind of blurred at times. I tried my best. I mean, one thing for me was I never let anyone that I worked with be friends with me on social media. And that was simply because I didn't have anything to hide. I don't have anything to hide. And many criticized me. Well, why won't you be my friend on social media? Why won't you be my Facebook friend? Because that's my space. Oh, you see what I did there? For those millennials who remember back in the day, we was all about the MySpace. And some of you Gen Xers too. Hey, what's up, y'all? But the boundary has to be there. And I had nothing to hide with my social media. But when I lived and worked on a ship, I didn't have any more of my life. My privacy was now, everyone else's, whatever I did, where if I went somewhere, people knew it. If I, ate at a certain time, people saw it. If I was talking to someone, it was talked about. So my Facebook was the only space where I still had, my own privacy. And I just really valued that. And that's just something that has stuck with me for years and will continue to stick with me. And I think, again, and I know this is funny. What do you mean? You're telling so much about your life. Well, not quite yet. You got to wait until the book drops. When the book drops, then I'm really going to give you the full, the full story on everything with personal and professional boundaries. But we got to have those boundaries at work, and we even got to have them in our personal lives. And what I want you to grow in, because I know this is not something that we arrive at, right? We grow in it. And I think even when we grow in it, we become more firm with it. And that is being okay with saying the word N-O. For some reason, we live in a culture where if we say no to something or if we don't agree to something, all of a sudden now it's like almost a default that the person who has asked of us to do something is now on a manipulation kind of spree to get us to do what they want us to do when you said no. And, it's just really interesting. There's so many things that, come up. And I remember one instance, a friend of mine had said, hey, Nash, I want to go to the Target. And this was years ago. This is when I was working in Hawaii. And hey, I want to go to Target, and I was wondering if you wanted to come with me. Now, I knew, again, I was just telling you that, personal space, personal boundaries, I didn't have much time for myself. I knew I did not want to go to Target with this person because that means that we were going to have to share an Uber together while we were out. That may have meant that we were also probably going to have to get lunch together. And then when we got back to the ship, that wouldn't have left much time for me to, call my mom or my sisters or, check in with family. And then where's the time for me? It just wouldn't have been there. So I was like, nah, I'm cool. So then this individual then goes on to say, are you sure you don't want to go? Because we can split the Uber, so we'll save money, right? So they're trying to build a case. Then we can go to your favorite spot. You know how you like the fried chicken and taro place. And we can go there. And then, we can go get acai because you like acai. And I was just like, dude, like I really would love to do that, but I really just need some time for myself. And I don't think that going out to the Target on, a shared experience right now is something that I'm willing to do. So I said no like 3 times. And I don't know why saying no the first time can't really be accepted. Like, can we just say no and it just be accepted without people trying to go on a spree of trying to manipulate us? And what I want you to be encouraged in is when you say no, remain firm in that. Don't cave into what someone's trying to get you to do, someone's trying to convince you to do. There's a reason why you said no, and you might not even know it, but your body might be speaking for you, and your body is telling you, hey, right now, we need to go ahead and get back on that Brim flow right now. We need to get back on that overflow right now. We can't afford to pour and expense some more when we don't even have enough in us right now. So that's what I want you to tap into, not to be swayed and persuaded by what someone else may or may not say. So what does self-care look like for you? And, is it a walk or a hike? Is it connecting with your friends? Maybe that's, self-care. Is it putting new oils in your essential oils diffuser? Or is it simply sitting in silence? I want you to find your vibe and engage today because you owe it to yourself first. Self-care is even, for some reason we've put it in our minds that self-care is going on a beach and laying with a tropical drink, or going, to a spa or getting a manicure or things on those lines. Self-care is even as simple as standing in your kitchen or sitting on your bed or your couch or wherever is comfortable for you, and allowing all of those compartmentalized and fragmented thoughts in your mind to collect themselves, come together, and to be processed. That is self-care. So it doesn't have to necessarily be going for a walk every day or watching a sunset or traveling, somewhere to go on a beach. It is just even getting your thoughts in alignment and in agreement with what your next move is going to be. Because when everything is so fragmented and so sprayed out, we get a little confused, a little blurred. Things get a little shaky, staticky. We want to get ourselves back into mental clarity. And that is even a form of self-care I would encourage you to agree with. Right, Mariah? I think Mariah's giving me the nod. Actually, she's giving me the wink. So we've got I've got three takeaways for you that I just want to remind you of when looking and thinking about self-care. Firstly, I want you to remember to keep healthy boundaries in place between the personal and professional realms when applicable. Now, I know it can be a little bit challenging when it comes to family and friends sometimes, and you don't want to let people down, especially if you're a people pleaser or if you're somebody who just, you can't say no. That's why I'm encouraging you to grow into it. Approval addiction is a real thing, and I know that's something that I had to break out of and God had to set me free from. But I want you, when it's applicable, try putting boundaries in place and simply saying things like, that's something I can't entertain right now. I don't want you to overextend or overcommit yourself if you're not overflowing first. So if offers or opportunities come up to present themselves outside of your normal everyday, right? If you're not overflowing, no. I know for me, I share a little bit of, what I get from the Lord in my quiet time with, friends and family. And I don't share it unless I'm overflowing. Like if, I need to soak this in for myself. I got a couple of days, you know what I mean? We want to make sure that we're overflowing first before we are pouring out, because we don't want to pour from an empty cup. Saying no can be hard, but do you know what's even harder than saying no? Having to tell someone that you had to be hospitalized because you couldn't say no. Because you've run yourself so ragged and so, and I'm not saying that, because you said yes one time, now you're just going to be good. It doesn't work like that. It leads up, you keep saying yes, you keep saying yes, you keep saying yes, you keep saying yes. And then you find yourself just kind of, I don't want you to be like that. And the last thing I want you to do is I want you to listen to your body and take the rest you need. Your body will tell you, we need to chill out. We really just need to calm down and just take a breather. I want you to engage in that. I want to close today's show with a passage that I absolutely love. And, it talks about being in a troubled time, But in the midst of a troubled time, being able to find peace, refreshment, and restorement for our souls. He offers a resting place for me in his luxurious love. His tracks take me to an oasis of peace, the quiet brook of bliss. That's where he restores and revives my life. He opens before me pathways to God's pleasure and leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring him honor to his name. That is Psalms 23, verses 2-3 in the Passion Translation. I want you to remember, you matter. You need to put yourself first, and it's okay to be selfishly obsessed with your agenda as it pertains to self-care. Next week, we're going to be entering the diet space and talking about our behaviors, or lack thereof, with eating healthy. I hope you'll join me next week. And if you are enjoying the show, would you please share it with a friend or a few of your family members? I would love for them to join our conversations that we're having here. And if you're listening on Apple, thank you to everyone who has already left a 5-star review. I would enjoy it if you would add one too. That rhymed without me even trying. And you can definitely connect with me on Instagram at Nash Speaks Live. I would love to get a vibe there with you. I'm posting there daily, posting to my stories, and you can definitely slide into my DMs with topic related content. But until we resume our conversations, I want you to remember to keep unboxing your life, one blank space at a time, living undaunted, knowing you're unbreakable, and embracing the reality that you're simply a treasure that's unfinished. Because you've been redeemed, restored, and reclaimed. That's a fact. Life is always best lived outside the box. Stay free, my friend, and we'll talk about what we eat next week.